Glacier National Park held some of the most beautiful views my eyes have ever had the privilege of viewing. Unfortunately, I'm on a schedule and I can't afford to dally long. On my way home from my hike, I stopped at a cafe which had some of the best food I had on the trip so far. I make it a rule to always be on the lookout for cafes like this. Not only does it help pump revenue into small businesses, but the more personal touch of a local restaurant gives me a more holistic feel of a place. I woke up bright and early to head out, and I ended up starting out my day on the wrong foot.
I'm okay. Oh no. I'm okay. Thank you. That's embarrassing.
It was pretty embarrassing. I should have backed my bike out and then packed it. Oops. Sticking to tradition, I stopped at another cafe on my way out of the glacier region and headed south on Montana Highway 83, which is a lot more isolated than the route back through the Flathead Reservation. Instead, I find myself in the Flathead National Forest on a long stretch of highway with very few gas stations. It seemed my troubles were mounting. Upon finding a gas station, my microphone burnt out. The unfortunate part of this is that I had no idea that this had happened for days. While out here on the road like this, I rarely revise my footage. On the never-ending list of things to learn about filming and editing, this was one of the most adverse lessons. When you only have 3 weeks and you're constantly on the road alone with limited batteries and time, revising footage isn't priority. One last thing, when I had finally filled my tank, I ended up dropping my gas cap with my key in the lock. The cap itself is pure metal and quite heavy, and the drop could have actually snapped my key in half. Luckily, it landed a little to the side and only slightly bent the key. It fortunately still fit in the ignition. Another big lesson to learn: when dealing with the key in the gas cap, don't let it roll off your bike. I always carry a spare, but you never want to have to use it, right? The region I'm heading into is deep into the heart of Montana's mining country. It's the most rugged region in the state. The land here is coarse, the population centers are isolated, and the history is rich in the treasure-hunting enterprise of prospecting and mining culture. In the years following the end of the Civil War, some of the most lucrative boom towns sprung up here. Virginia City, Bannack, Helena, Bozeman, Butte. The populations of these boom towns were many times larger in their heyday than they are today. Some of them, nowadays, are straight-up abandoned ghost towns managed by the government to preserve the state's heritage. The minerals between these mountains attracted people by the thousands. The routes taken here ended up having huge geopolitical ramifications when it came to the Native American sovereignty of the region, hunting grounds, and trade routes. Wars sprung up as a result of the clamoring masses of white men running through Native American territory in the never-ending search for treasure. One of the quickest routes to coming up here was the Missouri River. St. Louis, Missouri, known as the Gateway to the West, was not only where the Oregon Trail started, but where the Missouri River also met the Mississippi. The river is the longest in North America at roughly 2,300 miles from mouth to source. A staggering 80% of the freight and passengers shipped through the Midwest into the Montanan mines were by boat. Other routes were created, such as the Bozeman Trail, which had to be shut down as the result of the total Native American victory against the United States in Red Cloud's War, discussed in episode 10 of the season. After its closure, the Bridger Trail ended up picking up the slack over a much drier, much tougher route. It wasn't until the Mormons had established a foothold in the Great Basin by the name of Salt Lake City that a major overland route was made to the mines. The majority of the overland traffic to the mines of Montana came from Salt Lake City. The route would be used to exchange provisions and tools in exchange for the precious metals in the mines. Some of the most significant settlements in the Snake River Valley of Idaho sprouted up along this route, which is now known as Interstate 15. The Snake River Valley is also touched on in episode 22 of this season. The ride south really gave me a chance to see a lot of Montana's natural splendor. The environment got a lot more rugged as the highways I took got more and more isolated. the next episode, I'll be camping outside of a ghost town at one of my most secluded campsites yet.